with Minority Program Association today as part of one of the concluding workshops for the Learn part of the DefiSummer Celebration Summit and Hackathon. We're covering e-learning and blockchain. And so some of these words are also used in place of e-learning. What e-learning means is electronic learning, and that definition explains itself. But you might hear people interchangeably use it as online learning, remote learning, distance learning, blended learning, which is a combination of both, or instructional design, which is making materials that are meant for e-learning. And so here's a quick rundown of the history of e-learning. So in the early 90s, schools began to deliver courses online. In the 2000s, businesses started using e-learning to train employees and to onboard them internally. In 2005, it was the rise of Adobe Flash, which allowed for more content, more dynamic content for learning materials. And then online universities started allowing degrees and even the completion of courses online with full-on programs like Capella or whatnot, offering full-on degrees, even PhDs, completely online. And now with COVID, everyone, instead of the option to choose e-learning, everyone was forced to adapt to remote learning. And we are here, we are where we are right now, where everybody has had some experience working with e-learning and doing remote learning throughout this past year. And so, after around in 2010s, there was the rise of MOOCs, and what that is the massive open online course. Some of y'all might have taken this, and it's an online course with unlimited participation and open access to the course via the web. And some more popular frameworks have been Coursera, edX, and things of that nature. One of the drawbacks for MOOCs is that although anybody can enter, there really isn't much participation or much engagement between users, and also between users and the instructor. And because of this, there are high attrition rates, or a lot of people dropping off. And it's not really tailored and customized for people with disabilities as well. So although it does give access to a lot of people to have introductory information, it's kind of hard to deliver more tailored curriculum, and so some people, they don't necessarily like to learn this way. And MOOCs also gives the rise to micro credentialing, or the ability to have certification. And so the chart on the right kind of depicts its growth in rise, and then lately it's actually been stagnating, and I don't know exactly why this is the case. This may have to do something with the onset of remote learning, and then more individual courses being tailored in having better alternatives to MOOCs that are more personalized. So there are different kind of online learning revenue models. So let me just kind of go on each. There are solutions for universities. So this is the blackboards, the canvases, the ones that go to universities and basically put an LMS for the whole school. And then there's a way of doing ad-supported or sponsored content. There's content marketing. There's training for enterprise. Some learning management systems, if you're a student, you might have never heard of, because they're strictly for corporations, and they're onboarding materials independently. And the freemium MOOCs, and what a freemium model is, it's basically free unless you want a premium course or premium feature. And so in the case of a MOOCs, the content might be free, but getting the actual certificate on the platform like Coursera might be $49. And then there's the kind of one-on-one mentorship sessions is another one, where you basically pay a mentor to essentially tutor you, or different ways you can monetize a learning application that's done. And so in terms of open source learning management systems, these are kind of the main three that you guys might be familiar with. So like I mentioned, Canvas does have solutions for enterprise, but it also has all its code on GitHub. Moodle is also something that anyone can create a course with. And OpenEdX also has all their code on GitHub as well. So if you're looking to build a learning management system from scratch, these are good tools, or good code bases to work from. And so this is just a quick little chart from a research paper I found on what schools are using for remote learning today. And this doesn't necessarily translate to the learning management systems I mentioned, like Blackboard and Canvas are there, but it's important to realize like tools like Microsoft Teams, Google Classroom, Zoom, these video conferencing tools have in essence been the de facto learning tool for a lot of these schools where they weren't originally designed to be so. And so I think that's very important to note. And then when you know designing a learning system, you don't have to develop everything. You can integrate other tools and give a more hybrid solution. So that's very important, especially if you guys are in the learning incentivization track and designing a learning app. You don't have to integrate video conferencing. You can just do Zoom. And I'll give an example of an MVP which has had a similar workaround as well later. And so these are the biggest kind of e-learning platforms. And these aren't LMSs. These aren't learning management systems. These are just place where you can take courses and you can gain certification. So Coursera, Skillshare, LinkedIn Learning, Udacity, Udemy, edX are all the main learning platforms. And some have institutional backing. Like edX it really came up because Harvard and MIT is notorious for giving their curriculum and coursework online and through YouTube videos and whatnot. And they kind of originally put edX on the map. And I believe at the time, I don't remember before. I remember edX coming out. I don't remember many MOOCs before that. And it was really like, oh, we can get a Harvard education at home. And that's kind of how it got that way. And you'll even see nowadays, like if you're a student, you might have a LinkedIn Learning membership through your school. So that's something to do as well. And even schools nowadays, you can even see like Harvard and MIT and a lot of schools also have courses on Coursera. So the other day I was trying to start looking at Google UI UX certificate program, and they're doing that officially through Coursera. And so a lot of corporations are also partnering in developing contents on these e-learning platforms as well. So what is learning incentivization? And this concept existed before crypto, which we'll cover a little bit later. And it essentially is game theory. How do I apply game theory, not just for the classrooms, but just for learning in general? And the reason why I mentioned not for the classrooms is because studies show that in environments and workplaces where there's peer-to-peer learning, they have a tendency to deliver better products. But before crypto, if you look up token reward system, it'll show a bunch of non-crypto stuff for how teachers in the classroom can incentivize individuals. And I think this clearly translates to how a token system in terms of crypto incentivization in a learning environment needs. So the ability to set clear goals for the behaviors you wish to see, an explanation of how the reward system works, being vigilant of the behavior that requires a reward, and then being consistent about the behavior that elicits reward is what's needed for a tokenized reward system in the classroom, but also I think could be translated into crypto and kind of more considerations into game theory of not just giving badges, but really making rather making a comprehensive ecosystem where people are not only incentivized to learn, but they're proud to progress. And I think that we can go into how exactly to gamify learning incentivization all we want. That's just more into game theory, but I just wanted to note that it existed before the crypto token reward system. And these are just ways to gamify. And so here are some big considerations for developing a learning app that I know a lot of us on the team were considering, and it's still been an issue and we can't fully address because there are limitations in terms of e-learning. The first thing is, how do we prevent cheating? In any system where you're getting certification, or you're getting basically something that tells someone else that you have this skill set that is usually for upward mobility and gaining a job in the workforce, people are incentivized to cheat because that's money, and we have to prevent that. And when designing the system, just for an exercise. I think thinking in a way that assumes that all students will cheat will be beneficial to designing more secure systems. And then also, what is the audience? Is this an online training or is this a course? Is this internal about your own procedures, or is this trying to educate someone? What's the level of difficulty? Is there a need for allowing this open to anyone, or there should be prerequisite courses that you take? Is there internet connectivity? Are you designing something with a lot of videos that, say in Nigeria, where power might not necessarily be guaranteed all the time, this might prohibit certain students from turning in during the deadline. That's not another consideration. Another consideration is, how do we validate learning objectives in a completely automated way, especially for blockchain and crypto systems where you need to reward instantaneously or have a standardized validation system. It's really hard to grade free response questions, and that's kind of why a lot of these humanities and a lot of these open-ended subjects where you really do need a grader, and you do need you do have it's not binary and it's right or wrong. There is really many ways you can go with it. That's way harder to facilitate on a learning application, and especially when you're giving out crypto for it. And so, how are you delivering the learning? Is it mobile? Is it on your computer? And so will it be instructor-less? And how are the questions addressed? Like, how are things to the courses appended? What is the feedback system? These are all considerations to take. And then also, like, what is the instructor to student estimate? Like, is it MOOC, or is it more on that tutoring scale of that one-to-one? And this affects your the way you design your course, and what type of modules and what type of activities and what level of blended learning as well. So this is just kind of a tidbit into what SCORM is. I think people who are designing LMSs should abide by this. This is really an industry e-learning standard where SCORM is just creating units of online material that can be shared across systems. So it's a technical standard for e-learning content. So if you guys are making modules or whatnot, SCORM is a good reference for how to begin. So here are the problems with the current e-learning system. And by this, I'm mostly contrasting the centralized nature of current e-learning systems versus what a decentralized learning system could provide. So there's a single point of failure, there's a lack of transparency, and there's often scalability issues where if more students come on board, there needs to be additional IT infrastructure, additional support staff, and it's not as easy as to just bring people on board. Where on the opposite hand, with blockchains, more people on board tend to have a network effect in terms of body, not in terms of usage per se. But and it's also not open. There's limited access. Like certain people can't afford that $49 class, or don't even have access to that information, and the ability for decentralized file storage and decentralized information allows for anyone to get access. There's also a failure to grab attention, and that was one of the biggest things with MOOCs, where I'm just clicking next to go to the next course. For me, I know I have a hard time paying attention unless it's very modular. And then cheating, and I really don't know how to even quantify cheating in a reliable way. I just know it exists, and this is a research question I was trying to look into back when I was in college, but it's really hard to tell whether someone is cheating, and even to prevent it. And so that is just an inherent problem that comes with an e-learning system that I don't even know has gone up during COVID. And so here's some solutions into how to prevent a system. And this is just like how you're designing your courses. So you can make varied question sets of similar difficulty with randomization and one question at a time. So what I mean by this is like have each test have similar questions with different difficulties that are random, that someone who sent the answer key to someone else can't screenshot because it only shows one at a time. And to figure out, which order it's in and which one maps to which will take so much difficulty, where it's difficult to like just get the answers and map them one to one, where it would just incentivize the user to be honest and study and learn, because that would take less time. Restricting testing times and delaying score availability. So even if I know all the questions, delaying the score availability will make it so that I don't know which ones are right. And if I'm getting an answer key from someone else and I don't know what's right, like I'm going to like not trust them and just take my word chances. And also restricting testing times gives you less window to even have this opportunity to cheat. There's also biometric and authentication solutions. And so one trick as a student that people might do is they might get someone else to take their test for them. And so there are things like two-factor authentication. I know Duo is one that a lot of schools are using that requires people to log in with one of their devices, but this can also be circumvented. So there's kind of ethically questionable solutions like typing DNA, which uses JavaScript to develop a user profile based on the way you type, and that's a little that API is actually open and free to use. So you can use that to make sure that that is the individual taking the exam. From a blockchain perspective, there is the idea of DIDs, or decentralized IDs, or decentralized identities, where your wallet is basically your ID, and there are examples of like the .eth addresses, like Vitalik.eth is a DID for Vitalik, and so and that can be done through Wallet Connect, which was shown in one of the previous workshops. And then just questions that require thinking. Although it's kind of harder to grade that open-ended questions, you can still make closed questions that require a lot of thinking. And then, like I was mentioning before about the attention span, developing courses with micro-learning, this concept of small, bite-sized, 1 minute, 2 minute learning modules and I think especially now this needs to be emphasized, because more and more today people are having less and less attention spans, and they're used to just information overload. So people don't even have the bandwidth to spend that usual hour that we're used to in courses. So now here comes kind of the principles between blockchain and learning. And here, kind of the fundamental principles that I came up with is, and I briefly mentioned this earlier when I was mentioning problem, but that the information is open source. Like there is no border, there is no state, and this has a lot of advantages in terms of access, but in terms of, especially for subjects like history, where it may be very biased based on where you're at, to add transparency as well. One of the most used, I think, concepts within blockchain and learning is credentialing and certification and immutability. So the ability to say that you completed a course for it to be on the blockchain and for no one else to take it from you. And this can directly lead to talent pipelining, fraud, and plagiarism prevention. And when I mean plagiarism prevention, I don't just mean like, okay, he got the certificate, but for bodies of work, you can, and this work comes from the more open-ended pieces of work, you can put your essay on chain and it can show, on the timestamp that you were the first one to write that. And no one and anyone before you, there was no one before you, but anyone after you would be attributing your work. And so there's that plagiarism prevention there, but there's also direct talent pipelining. So if I am, for example, taking on Coursera a corporate training, that certification can get me direct job with that company. And companies, instead of doing normal headhunting, they can look on the blockchain to see who got certified and directly reach out to that person. There's also intellectual property. I touched on this in the plagiarism prevention and the attribution and monetization. But what I mean from this, there is the opportunity for instructors to monetize their work and even license it. And I think NFTs were a good example of how artists can license their work even after it's sold. And so that is something I think is underlooked, is the intellectual property of educators. And I think it's really easy to just take educators' work and not accredit it. And it's kind of hard to accredit things nowadays. Like getting used to citations and things like that. I think this can be standardized and streamlined with blockchain. And then there's the gamification, which I mentioned, but coupled with reputation, so that reputation in our today's society might be, oh, I have a master's, I have a PhD, but in here, you can develop complex reputation systems like in Call of Duty, where you go prestige, and even do course tracks where you need prerequisite courses to unlock the next course to make sure people have that underlying information, and then rewards on top of that, which is the crypto incentivization, actually giving money or crypto to people who complete these courses. There's also results-based financing. So you can directly see like the people who went through this program track perform this well, therefore I should fund this program. And that's all on chain. So that's another perspective I found from, I think, a World Bank research paper. And so this is traditionally the e-learning stack, and this is the source, the blockchain e-learning stack. This is the source where I got it from. With the first starting with cloud services, layer 2 with blockchain, building on top of that e-learning applications, or 5 education milestones. And so here is the most kind of common way that blockchain is being used, and it's blockchain-based certification. And there are actually countless number of examples. Some of these are from 2019 and 2020. I think more schools have adopted this, but they've been a lot of schools have been, issuing digital credentials on a blockchain platform. There is block certs, which you can put the certificate URL and then verify whether that person got their certificate or not. There is Sony Global Education, which what they're doing is they're sharing official records like transcripts on chain. And so I think in terms of certification, in terms of badges, in terms of reputation, that already exists, and a lot of universities are adopting it. And I think it's a way more cheaper system than the current transcript system or the current way to get your diploma, which is heavily monetized. I think that this is way cheaper, and it's way more accessible than the status quo, which isn't centralized. All schools don't have a worldwide transcript database. You have to go to the individual. There could be one that is made through blockchains, at least that's verifiable publicly. Which like again, you have to call the school DAO today to do so. And so here is just I was looking at some research articles. This is more on the technical side of like, here's the UML diagram of what tends to be in a learning app. That you have a course module, a module unit, assessment, certificate, curriculum, and then submission. And then here on the left side is more like other requirements of functions that are needed, like privilege control, multi-sig, viewing the certificate, revoking the certificate. And so it's just some simple stuff. So if you're doing it from scratch and not using an open LMS like the examples mentioned. So here is the blockchain crypto incentivization. And here are a couple of examples that are the most popular: CoinMarketCap Earn and Coinbase Learn. And basically what it is a multiple choice question. They'll show a video and they'll have questions associated with it, just standard multiple choice questions about crypto. And so it's really you earning crypto. So it's in the advertisement it says learn crypto, earn crypto. And it's just that you're learning about cryptocurrencies, and you're gaining usually that coin that you're learning about. And so Coinbase, like, you can earn up to $30 worth of crypto for answering questions about those specific cryptocurrencies. The thing that I think that these are lacking, though, is this isn't overall STEM concepts. It's not overall education. This is essentially a marketing technique where you're basically paying for people to know about your product. But that is effective use where people are actually getting money for learning. and I think they're the most used. We're building a DApp where users can learn STEM principles and get rewarded on there. That's the only one that I know that's directly like that takes on more of a MOOCs model with incentivization. I've heard about a lot of people in the past doing it, but I don't, looking at their, especially in 2019, 2017 type of range, but a lot of them don't continue to give out rewards. And even when you're giving out rewards, how to lock in value and how to, keep the reward pool going is one of the essential questions that we're asking ourselves when developing this. There's Quest Book, which is it's very niche in itself too. It basically just came out. I think their Y Combinator backed from some people in India, and what it is it's Quest based incentivization. So they haven't even officially came out with their Learn token yet, but they're more of teaching people with a senior Solidity developer, where classrooms are one instructor to 8 people, based on particular tasks, and for doing tasks which the instructor verified. It's very instructor heavy, with their MVP just being on WhatsApp originally. Um, it's a very tailored course to get people to be Solidity devs. And so that is, again, very crypto niche and learning about crypto as well. There's Uncrypted, which is also about to launch. Robin Roy, he's actually presenting about Uncrypted in I believe in a week. I think Matic gave him a little like a grant to basically, what it is you gain crypto for doing actions that give you knowledge about Web3. For example, you can gain crypto for connecting your wallet. You can gain crypto for writing a smart contract. And it's very using Web3 to learn Web3. Again, gaining crypto, earning crypto for learning crypto. And then there's BitDegree, which when I was looking up, you can buy the courses with crypto, but I don't even think they reward anymore in terms of crypto. But again, it's very blockchain focused. Like all of these are crypto focused, and something that we're trying to achieve, and I want to encourage other, educators and people who in this space is just teaching anything on crypto, and really not taking down the stigma of learning crypto and earning crypto, and just learning to earn, and broadening the scope of these applications. So here's some limitations. Now that I mentioned that, of designing an e-learning system or crypto incentivization in general. Like the quality of the information and interactions depend on the students and the learner. Like even if you make the most beautiful content, if the student's not learning it, like it's not effective. And it also boxes tests into transactions, limiting complex assessments. And so that's also something like it's very hard. Like, how do I develop question set that makes sure that people are paying attention, but also thinking critically? There's also not much regulatory precedence for like tokenizing learning marketplaces. And I didn't want to mention this because a lot of it's like it doesn't, if you don't mention regulation, they don't really they really stay out the picture. But yeah, I just like if there are whole learning marketplaces, I don't personally know the regular. I don't know what they've determined in the past because like I told you, like there hasn't really been much solutions that use learning incentivization. But when you look at all of kind of blockchain and e-learning videos or resources, they mention learning incentivization. But again, I'm lacking to see real implementation for regular education. And then there's limitations of current blockchains to enable microtransactions. And this might be why the learning apps of the past weren't even scalable. And I know Ethereum transactions were like $200 or like $500 earlier this year. I think now someone sent me a transaction. It was $1 for gas. And even with solutions, layer 2 solutions like Matic, which makes it a fraction of a cent, now you can really reward someone and make a transaction on the blockchain, for a question or for like micro actions within the learning platform, where it would have cost thousands of dollars to give to put it on chain that they completed that question, and having like 1,000 questions throughout a course, like that adds up, and it's not a good business models. But I mean, now those solutions are coming across, and I think it's the perfect time to really start with incentivization models, not just in learning applications. And so yeah, I know I went over a lot in general, but yeah, that's kind of the information I was able to find on this. If you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer any. Ask whatever you want, and I'll also be making this available on the internet on YouTube. I'll link that in the Discord as well. But yeah, any questions? Also stop the recording, Lucy.